Hey guys, how's it going? CoderMan here. I stumbled across one of my fellow YouTuber channels, and he created a video on how he got started in software development. And it's funny because it's something that I've thought about making, but I was like, does anyone really care? Like, I don't want to just sit here and just talk, but he got some good reception, and I actually just straight up asked him if, he thought it was a good idea that I do the same, and he did. So I'll leave a link to Daniel's channel. He has an awesome 430. So he's kind of like my spirit animal in a way, because he has the car that I'm working to get hopefully this year. So my software journey actually began when I was about 13 years old. My dad built me a computer, and I ended up getting a piece of software that was called Hot Metal Pro. Ended up picking that up, I think, at CompUSA. It was a really horrible HTML editor, but what I liked about it was really simple to use. I had no prior experience with programming or computers or anything, and I just kind of dove in. I started building cheat code websites for games, and kind of just started distributing those to my friends and just my family, and it was just, it was super exciting, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was lifting images from like Alta Vista and doing everything that you should definitely not do if you're a professional software developer. A few years later, when I was a freshman in high school, I got into actual software development, like, PHP, JavaScript. jQuery wasn't even out at the time. You just had to do native JavaScript. I came across this service in the UK that was Lycos, which ultimately was purchased by Yahoo. They had an unprecedented thing, which is you could actually have a dynamic website with PHP and MySQL for free. So you don't have to pay anything. It was all set up. You could hack away on PHP, and that's essentially what I did. There was websites all over that had little tips and tricks and stuff, but nothing like today, which is awesome for everybody that's learning programming today. It's a hell of a lot easier to learn. So I started building photography websites. I was into photography at the time, so I built a photo gallery. I built like a mock shopping cart. I got kind of hooked up with Flash with some of the tech evangelists in the Adobe and Macromedia community, and basically just started building Flash websites and Flash intros and all that stuff. It was all for fun. I was not really 100% sure what I wanted to do when I graduated high school. I was just kind of playing. Just as I graduated high school, I started doing graphic design, and I really hated it. It wasn't for me. I had to create a portfolio to show my work, and that's when I started getting deeper into website design. Actually, let's go back to high school real quick before I continue the journey. When I was in high school, I got introduced to the Hackerly Quarterly, which was 2600 magazine, and they taught you ethical and sometimes, unethical hacking. And I found it to be really interesting, not hacking into systems and stealing money and, the stuff that people are doing today, but just learning how systems work and learning the inner workings really kind of gives you a better understanding of how you can use that in your own business or use that in your own development path. So the point of that would be just, look at things around you and kind of think of how they're built. I believe I created a couple of DJ websites and a couple of band websites. And at the time, my dad was actually working with SiriusXM, or at the time it was XM Radio, with one of their partners to build an XM radio type project. And he actually got me in touch with one of the DJs on one of the channels, so I got to create his website. Looking back, it was a horrible website. It had instant music when you went to the site. But for me, it was a really awesome time because it kind of validated that, you can make money doing this, which is funny for me to say because, you just go online now and know you can make money doing it. But for me, that was kind of like the turning point, if you will, where I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. So I decided that I wasn't going to go to college. I was just going to keep hammering on this. A few years later, I was able to write a book on Flash and PHP thanks to a connection with Wiley Publishing. That spearheaded another book deal, which after that I got my third book deal. The third one, I was a co-author for a fireworks book, so I was me and 5 other authors. It's a great experience. I really enjoyed writing, but it's strenuous. You don't make a lot of money. The biggest thing about writing a book for me was the networking and getting linked up with people that are in that community. It's kind of like a validation, if you will. So soon after I wrote my first book, I ended up getting hooked up with some agencies, started doing freelancing, and one day just really thought, you know what? I don't want to freelance. I want to do this full time. I was doing it full time, but it was kind of like, scavenging. One day you get great projects, the next day you got nothing. So I just kind of kept pushing, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start an actual studio. I'm going to do this. I'm going to incorporate, do the whole 9 yards, spend the money, take the risk. And that is what Pixelbit became. Soon after I started the agency, mobile apps started to really become a thing. iOS had just released the App Store for indie developers, and it was the Wild West. You could create anything you wanted. There was very little regulation, and you just have a whole bunch of fun. I ended up creating some great apps I ended up working with the Department of Labor. I ended up working with Porsche, Comcast, a whole bunch of great brands. Had a lot of fun doing it, and I continue to work with a bunch of them. These days, Pixelbit's more of like a one-off shop. We develop mobile apps and websites for bigger brands. We continue to support them long after the project's done, and I'm just focused on creating long-term relationships. I also partner with other agencies that have overflow work where they're great projects, but they just don't have the time to complete them. So we jump on those. In addition to that, I consult with other companies to help them, run their software teams and build products or conceptualize products. Creating Pixelbit actually gave me the opportunity to work with a much higher level client and validate for, getting bigger projects, which was great. But of course, it also brought in a whole bunch of stress, which in complexities and such, which I can dive into much deeper in another video. But the focus of this is, my software journey is not super glamorous. I didn't build like an Angry Birds clone or, have 1 million downloads in a night or anything like that. It's just been piling on the different software and technologies. When cloud computing came and, Amazon S3 and stuff, I jumped in on that early. I find that when you jump on something really early, all the learning's not out there, but all the tools are available, so you just kind of hammer on them. You just, like you said, you just hack on them. And random things that I've developed is I developed a remote control to run slideshows for conferences. I built an app and an embedded system with my dad to control an RC car using Flash. I was going to demo it at a conference, but I never ended up doing that conference. So it just was something that I just kind of hacked together. And, really, I think I attribute all of my success, or at least a very good portion of it, is to never be afraid, always just keep hacking, always keep pushing harder and harder. Finding a new program languages, like when I was working with Objective-C with iOS, all of a sudden here comes Swift, and it was like, oh, holy crap, whole new language, nothing like it. Truth be told, it's a lot simpler in the long run. But there's a lot of idiosyncrasies that you're like, how the hell does this work? Why would I be using this? And if you're afraid of change, you're just going to kind of be left behind. So I've kind of always just pushed forward and learned the new technology. I've learned technologies that I learned them and then never used them. I experimented a lot with Ruby on Rails, and I just never had a project with it. I think I actually had one small project for it was like a Valentine's Day event. A lot of my development I do in Swift, PHP, MySQL, do like Heroku instances, S3, all sorts of techie buzzwords. To anybody out there that's thinking of learning programming or thinking of just hacking, ethically hacking, just get a computer, just grab a book or an online course or something and just do it. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a great time killer when you get started. And it becomes an addictive hobby that, realistically, unless you're building some super high-end computer to, CodeFold or something like that, it just doesn't take all that much. Over the years, I've also done 3D development and did some light programming for that. I've built some extensions to Photoshop using their programming language, and just kind of dipped my toe in a whole bunch of places. But for the most part, I've stayed in software development and mobile development. So yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. Just wanted to kind of lay out my journey on software development. If you have any questions or want some more details on the products or services that I use, leave a comment below. If this is your first time, please subscribe. Like the video if you like the content, and I will catch you guys later.